Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another photo mishmash. This one being broadcast live January 8th, 2018. It's a new year. We've got new cameras from Canon, from Nikon. We've got a waterproof drone that's great at shooting music videos. What? And Steve bought a new camera. All that and so much more in today's show. As always, as usual, whatever I say, I'm really blessed to welcome my good friend and co-host Steve Skurch onto the show today. Steve,
as always, about 70% of the time, I'd say there's shows I can't make, but I'm very happy to be here. Happy New Year to everybody. Happy new decade to everybody. I know some people are going to debate whether new decade starts on 2021 or 2020. I mean, leave it to America in today's age to debate something stupid like that. And I know there's technicalities around it. So for all you mathematicians or history buffs out there, I'm sorry. But you know what? In my world, this is a new decade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll go for it. I mean, I think there was a David Carr show back a couple of weeks ago where I was like, can you pick your favorite pictures from the last decade? And somebody in the comments was like, it's not really the end of the decade. So, I mean, yeah, I think technically they are right. Great way to start the decade, whether you recognize it at the beginning of a decade or not.
Well, the way I figure it is, since I was a little kid, when you start a year with a 0 at the end, that is a new decade to me. So I'm in a habit, call it a habit. And so happy new decade to you guys. I'm excited about what the next 10 years has to bring, what the next year has to bring. And happy new year to all you guys in the chat room.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. And if you were here for the last show, we were drinking cocktails to celebrate the end of the year. I don't know about you, Steve, but I've gone back to the healthy lifestyle. I'm sipping some nice green tea with just a dash of honey.
I've got, this is a hydro flask full of fine bourbon.
Okay. We'll see.
It's water. It's not exciting at all tonight.
You can't handle your liquor, so you might be able to pull that off, and maybe we don't even know.
No, I give the impression off like I drink a lot. I like bourbon. I like to sip different bourbons and taste it and stuff like that. A cocktail to me is like 3.5 ounces, and I can have like 2 of those over the course of an evening, and I feel good. And I wake up the next day and I feel a slight headache, but not too bad. I go beyond that, and I'm just a big lush. So I talk a big game, but no, it's all water tonight. I should have poured it in my Chewy or Obi-Wan mugs. But I got a little grossed out the last time I used them because they're from 1977, and I don't know, they just been sitting on a shelf for a long, long time. So the way it's just a lot of dust in there.
Yeah, you've grossed me out, and I'm not grossed out too easily. So let's move on. As Kyle has pointed out in the chat, thank you all for hanging out with us, people. I say chat. Your chat is not an entity. You wonderful people. Points out, Steve, that you've posted 3 times in the last week on Instagram.
My account get hacked.
Did your account get hacked? Yes.
That's nice, Kyle. Yeah, I'm glad that you noticed that. Thank you. So, yeah, it was a little bit of a New Year's resolution. It was an unsaid New Year's resolution, but I really wanted to start using that account more. And this goes back a long time. I've just ignored it for such a long time. But you've been giving me some really nice shout outs on this show. And, so I've noticed that I get these new followers. After each show, I might get a couple new followers. And after a while, I was like, I'm giving these people absolutely nothing to look at on my account. And what a drag that is. They're not going to get Insta stories from me. I don't know, call me too old school. I just don't want to figure that out. But so I decided for the new year that whenever I posted something on Steve Skurch Photography Facebook page, I was also going to export an Instagram version of that photograph and just post it at the same time. I've tried the later.com, and that actually can work well, but it's a feast or famine for me. I'll like post every day for a month and then I do nothing with it. Mm-hmm. I just kind of thought, well, let me just try to rope this into my Facebook posting workflow and see if it works. So thank you, Kyle, for noticing that. I've kind of enjoyed that. And I'm also changing up my virtual mats this year. I'm kind of doing a non-virtual mat, if that makes sense. Just a just a thin white border around with my signature at the bottom, just something clean and simple. Not for any particular reason, just to have a consistent look and try that for the year and see what I think.
Nice. So if we come back over to, do I see those on Instagram?
No, I don't do them on Instagram.
Okay.
I leave it on size as it is, but on my Facebook posts I do.
Got it. Cool. All right. Well, as you see there at the bottom, go follow Steve on Instagram. He's going to give you people what you want now. Regular posting. You heard it from him. We're going to get him on TikTok tomorrow. So just stay tuned for that.
TikTok.
Come on. You got to know what TikTok is, don't you? You got it.
Isn't that going the way of MySpace and Snapchat and
TikTok's at top right now. TikTok's at the top.
Really?
It's at the top. Yeah, seriously. It's where the kids are. Now, is it where our audience is? No, because as my 12-year-old he's 13 now. As my 13-year-old repeatedly tells me, "Oh, that's cringy, Dad. Oh, that's cringy." So, yeah. Talking about sorry, Steve, but talking about stuff that's not cringy, Squarespace. Squarespace is a fantastic place to build your website, and they are back in 2020 to continue to sponsor the show, despite things that Steve and I do on it. So that's great. I'm so happy that they're back. It really is a fantastic place. There was a big milestone for me just a few days ago in that I officially canceled my old site hosting. So it's been about 4 or 5 months since I've moved Photorect.tv to Squarespace. But my hosting still, I was paid up until next week, actually. But it's all been running fantastic. Search still works. SEO still works. In fact, it's better than it was, and it's cheaper than I used to pay. So I canceled that, and I'm happy. So I've put my money where my mouth is. I am a proud paying customer of Squarespace. I didn't actually use my own deal.
You could have.
I just realized that I could have saved 10%. No, seriously, I didn't do it. I don't know if they would have let me.
I'm going to set up one, and I'm going to become an influencer this year, and I'm going to start hawking Squarespace. Squarespace.com/Steve.
I mean, they do. I'm not trying to be big here. It's the opposite of being big. They sponsor everybody. I mean, I think I could post a picture of Archer's butt, the dog, and be like, "Hey," and Squarespace would be like, "Yeah, we'll sponsor that." But I truly believe in their website design platform. It is fantastic. It's easy to use, and they've added so much. If you need to book clients, you can do that through their system. You need to sell prints, you can do that through their system. If you have a goal, and Chad, I wanted to ask you, because Steve, clearly you want to post to Instagram a little bit more often. I don't know if you thought that as a New Year's resolution or just something you'd like to do a little bit more often. If you would like to out there display your work in a nice place where you have control over the quality of it, the size of the display, what's around your image, Squarespace is a great and easy way to do that. It's not the only one, but it really is a good option for you.
Yeah. They're awesome. That's great.
Yeah. And also, we have so little control over this. Sometimes it's a little frustrating, but Groupon today has discounted the pen offer an additional $1. Now, that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it makes ridiculous prices just that much cheaper. So,
I think someone would just have to be downright silly to not take advantage of what Groupon's doing with that. And the fact that they've kept it going here. I know we talked about that last show, so I had to eat my words from a few weeks ago, but it will end someday. So go take advantage of it now while you can if you're not a subscriber already.
Yeah, easiest way to get there is Photorect.tv/pen. That takes you directly to the Groupon deal. It's just really, really affordable. So go follow that and check it out. And if you're watching the show and you like what you see so far, take a moment, hit that thumbs up button. And I'll remind you that we're going to talk a bunch of different topics. Some is review of stuff that's gone out on my channel. Some is stuff that's gone out in the pen system. And some is news that Steve and I like to talk about, plus some tips for the new year photographers. We're going to cover all of that. And you can find all of these show notes linked right down below this video. They're on my They're on my site at Squarespace. Okay, quick reviews. My Mavic Mini review just went out yesterday. Here it is. In short, for those of you who are taking the time to watch this show, I'll basically spoil the review for you. I'm impressed. For such a small, lightweight, affordable drone, it actually produces very, very usable results and is incredibly easy to fly. There are a few drawbacks, and for the first time ever, I share all of my drone crash videos in one place.
I've
So
never seen that Antarctica one before. Or wait, was it Antarctica? The one that was on the ship.
Yep, that's Antarctica. That was
hot tub. That was good.
Yeah, you know, I was watching that back and realizing just how much that ship was moving as I was landing. And why didn't I think to take a little bit more time? I remember being nervous that I thought he was really going to take off, like the ship was going to start going. And, you know, yes, I could go ask the captain to slow down, but he's kind of a big, scary Russian dude. I'd rather just quietly land the drone, or in that case, quietly crash it so that it falls all the way down to the next deck below.
Yeah.
That was, yeah. So, so go watch that review if you haven't. The Mavic Mini is in stock right now, selling well. I have teased a couple of times about the GoPro on here. I did, if you follow my stories, you saw I have successfully flown it. There's been 2 firmware updates, one of which I think really does affect in a positive way the payload capacity of this little guy, and it flies with the GoPro on top. Is that GoPro footage better? It definitely is, but only when you're flying directly forward or backward. As soon as you try any of these movements, there's so much tilt that you realize just how much this little gimbal, you know, I realized that pretty quickly. It's like, oh yeah. And you say, well, couldn't you just rotate it back? But every time the drone, you know, so no. And the electronic stabilization in the GoPro is not enough to correct tilts that are stuff like this. So I might still do it in the future because, again, a slow forward movement looks gorgeous on the GoPro, but the left and right stuff, not so much. And it does definitely affect its flying time. And it did still, even with these new firmware updates, tell me that it was a little unhappy with how much the motors were working, but it worked.
Now, in your video, you mentioned that there is no 4K on that, which we know.
That's right.
Then you add yet.
Yeah, you know, I don't have any inside information, and I don't, you know, I think it's a possibility that they could say, hey, we have figured out, you know, and I think they already know what they can and can't figure out a lot of times with this, but they said, we've figured out how to make the bandwidth pipeline a little bit more efficient, and we can bump it up to 4K now.
Okay.
There's a little bug in here.
I kind of figured it was just, you know, if DJI wanted to grace us with that in that product, they could probably do it. But I was curious if maybe you had a little inside knowledge, or if something, a rumor was that there was a coming for that.
No, but what I do think is more likely is some type of more active track, actually, not that kind of fake. I show how you can kind of fake the active track and how it kind of works. I mean, it certainly tracks the subject, but once it starts moving, it tries to follow a little bit, but not a ton. And so I show that in that video as well. So, yeah. And this is not, I haven't published this out publicly on YouTube, but I do have it on YouTube, the dog sledding video. So returned from Alaska, already talked about that a little bit, went dog sledding, brought my son along. This was kind of a trial run for Anita of Serious Sled Dogs, and that's who we are going to work with when we go back next December for Northern Lights. We've added a second tour. First one filled up quite quickly, and the second one has started to fill up. So if you're interested in coming up to Alaska in the wintertime for amazing potential of Northern Lights and awesome activities like dog sledding, you can check that video out. It's linked right down below this video in the show notes. And the opening is filmed with the Mavic Mini, which is fun. So.
Cool. Yeah, it's a great tour. I was so bummed to miss out on that this year, but I was so happy that we had our time up with Estelgis, Frank and Miriam in the summertime. So yeah. Like I've said on the show before, I just love getting up there and having a reunion with those folks. They're just amazing people. So if you are interested at all in photographing Northern Lights up in Fairbanks and you haven't done one of our Symphony in the Sky tours yet, I mean, we get a lot of people that do that every year, but do it multiple times. But for sure, just do it at some point in your life. That should be a bucket list sort of item to take advantage of.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. It's just really cool. Just fantastic experience. Just to go to Alaska in wintertime alone.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Of course, you want the aurora to show up. Does it just pop 100% of the time? Unfortunately, no. And there's just no control of that. But the cool thing is we have such a great relationship with Frank and Miriam now, and other things that you get to do to get that Alaska experience. that just makes it very special. And then if the aurora is really active, that's just huge icing on the cake. And it used to be that people would sign up for that trip just to go photograph the aurora. I guess my point is, like, you can go up there and not see aurora, but still have a wonderful time. It's just an incredible, incredible place.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay. And then if you're a Pen member, you take advantage of all of this content that's gone out in the last couple of days. Cold weather photography, how to dress appropriately for that, from Ali, went out today as a video. You got David reminding us all his backup strategy. I'll be honest, I think it's a little complicated, but it is important to back up. Moving into the new year, you should read over that strategy if you're a Pen member. If you're not a Pen member, I already told you, you should join, because they are dumb prices right now. David and I sat down last week and we talked about Capture 120 and DxO as strong alternatives to Lightroom. We'll be talking more about both of those programs individually in future videos over the next couple of months. And I haven't had a show since my year-end slideshow went out. So if you feel like you need some inspiration, you want to just put something pretty on, maybe you got a new 4K TV for the holidays. This is a nice 4K slideshow of your pictures. Each of you, we're supposed to pick one of your favorite pictures. We always have the person who puts in like 8, and then I'm supposed to pick your favorite picture. So
I'd like to go back and watch. You've been doing that for a number of years now, but to go back and watch each year consecutively, because this year in particular, I recall watching it and just thinking, man, there are some really talented photographers and beautiful photographs that were submitted this year. Not that the last years didn't have that. It seemed like people have kind of stepped it up this year.
Yeah. They're great. That's a really interesting thought. I hadn't thought about going back and watching all of them. I could also just string them all together. They wouldn't be 4K anymore because I don't have the originals of the old ones.
What I liked is the amount that you had this year. The video length was kind of just right, and then you got to actually study each photograph for a couple seconds before it moved on to the next one. I think it was a couple years ago. You did a really big push on that pretty early on, and you got a lot of pictures. And I remember watching the show, and it was just like,
it was a
challenge.
Yeah, it was a little overwhelming. I agree. You would think that with my growth, that the slideshow would only get bigger, but this year's participation was definitely less than the prior 2 years. But I thought it was really nice.
I just thought we didn't put any of our selfies in there.
No, I did not. I know.
Really high quality photo.
But it was special to me because I asked my daughter a few days before the deadline. I said, Fiona, you took some pictures this year. Do you want to put one into the slideshow? And she said, yes. And she came down to the little Lightroom and she picked her favorite picture. Awesome. It's the bunny rabbit. And so she had a picture in there too. So, I just love doing that. It's fun. I've got it down so it doesn't take me nearly as long as it used to. So it's not a ton of work, but it just turns out really nice. And it is just fun to see this huge array of photos.
Yeah. And I like it because, we'll get to this in a couple minutes, but we sit here and kind of work with you guys on Lightroom tips and tricks. And then we've got a lot of opportunities to do photo critiquing and competition and stuff through Pen. But to sit there and watch the slideshow at the end of the year and see some of these pictures that we've kind of spent time talking about, it's like, oh, I recognize that, and I know who did that one, and I know who did that one. So it's a really cool thing that you do.
Yeah, thanks. So sorry, I did a little spoiler. Yeah, we're gonna jump into the Lightroom right now, and I did open it up to the public today. We got a couple more pictures, so I am going to add that stream and come over here to Lightroom. And what I thought would be useful, and I could be wrong, I'm wrong often, is I'm going to just go through creating a new catalog. It's the new year. I actually don't think I've taken any official pictures yet this year. Technically I took a couple waiting for the fireworks to go off on the Space Needle after midnight, but that never happened because we had really high gusty winds. So they had to cancel all of that. So I don't think I've taken any new pictures with my camera yet, which is kind of embarrassing. Steve, have you?
Yeah, I have. I've had a couple real estate shoots, and then I picked up that Fuji. So I've taken snapshots, but I haven't done anything with those files yet. They're just still sitting on the memory card in I'm just messing around, getting to know
Yeah.
the controls and setting it up to the way that I like it and stuff.
Cool.
But no, just work stuff, nothing too exciting.
Nice. All right. So I'm just going to create a new catalog for my 2020 year. I put mine on this little Lacy SSD. So I did file, new catalog, Lacy, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it Photo 2020. And kind of David in our car and I had this conversation on a show back, I think early December. Could you find your favorite pictures from the last 10 years? And I thought I was fairly organized, but then as you can see over here, I really couldn't find photos past 2012 very easily. So I've been digging in old hard drives for the last couple of weeks just to kind of finalize my feeling of long-term organization. And I'll be sharing some more about that on Pen, because there's a couple of things I picked up that I think moving forward are going to make things a lot nicer on the long term. But I do keep each year in its own catalog. So now this is just going to be called 2020 Lightroom.
Yeah, you reminded me. I need to go back. I'm good from about 2017 forward, but before that, it's just kind of a jumble. And then in I think it was 2016 is when I migrated everything over to Lightroom from Aperture.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have any ratings, or any ratings I had given stuff in Aperture were just gone. And I haven't gone back and done anything with that stuff. And so finding my favorite shots in some of those old catalogs would be a challenge for me right now.
Yeah. Yep. And something I found is that these hard drives are not as robust as we would like to think. So we really want to keep things moving forward and updated the media from time to time. So now I'm just importing from my hard drive, from one of my externals, where you guys drop your weekly mishmash crit files into, building previews 1-to-1, not developing and not adding any keywords here. And I'm just going to say, and they're just getting added to the catalog. They're not needing to move or anything, because the spot that they are is just fine. And so now
Scanlon asked a question. I know we'll do Q&A at the end, but I think this is a good one for what you're doing right now. He asked if you create a new catalog for every year.
I do. And so, Brian, I've talked about this before. I create a catalog for each year, and then all previous years are mushed into one catalog. So when 2019 ended 8 days ago, I opened up my archive catalog, and I imported the 2019 catalog into that. And so that catalog I just closed a moment ago holds all of my pictures from 2012 to 2019 now. So that's one place to go for all prior pictures. This catalog that I just created, the 2020, will travel with me everywhere I go this year, and will have all of my 2020 pictures, and it'll grow over the course of the year. And it will be backed up every time I come back home.
And so, and you keep that on a portable external drive, and then you obviously you back it up. But that's your working drive for the year, right?
That's correct. Yep.
You don't kind of file that away. You wipe it out and start a new year with it. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Now there are some benefits to kind of keeping 2019, and then wiping everything, because it will keep any keywords you set up, any catalog publishing and all of that stuff. But I use so very little of that these days that I pretty much can start new each time. And your presets still come across, so you don't lose your presets. They're not tied to a catalog unless you've specifically gone into your edit settings, your preferences, and said that. So yeah, good questions. Good stuff. Yeah, and I keep it all on a little SSD. So, all right, first up, we got Jason K has this, I think this is the Roosevelt Arch entrance to Yellowstone in the northwest corner, if I'm remembering correctly, and a little bit of Milky Way back there. It's cool. And Steve, you can see this clearly?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, let me, I don't know how to make it bigger on my screen, because I've got the chat box here with this streaming service, but I'm not using it. I'm using the YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, but I can.
Right. So nice. Let's see, wide angle, 10 millimeters, f4. I love this bit of the Milky Way here. I think this is a pretty cool shot. Let's see. I think the first thing that I would do, I'm going to switch over to the develop panel. And, you know, clearly taken with a wide angle, clearly have some distortion that's kind of, you know, making that arch lean. I don't think I'd fix that. Would you, Steve?
I would fix it to see how it looked.
Okay. All right.
If I didn't like that, if I liked the drama created by the distortion that's there, and I don't mean distortion in a bad way necessarily. I just mean I wouldn't have straightened out that. I wouldn't have done the horizontal line. I would just do 2 verticals on either side of that, on the outside edges.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Well, what's tricky is I'm not sure those are completely vertical. Hold on, undo. So we're the guided.
Yeah, wherever you think the verticals would be.
Actually,
yeah, so those columns might be angled. You could just draw a line straight down the middle of each column.
Yep, that's what I've just decided. And that little keystone of the arch there, I think would be a good spot. So yeah, let's see what happens here.
Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So 10 millimeters is wide. I don't know if this was full frame or not. I'm going to guess that it was not. I'm going to guess that it's a 6. Yes.
Reverse back real quick and then draw 1/3 line. See that little wall that is about right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight across on that wall, not the top of the arch like you did the first time.
Yeah.
But use that wall as your horizontal line and see what that does with the distortion. You got to draw the second vertical.
Right here.
Yeah, it's probably going to be. Yeah. No.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Let's see what auto does for a sec. Oh.
Let's see. Do that. I missed the change.
There's off, and then the auto.
So the one thing I want to say, first of all, I like what auto did. I think it looks a little bit more kind of as you might remember it if you were there taking the shot. Because when you take, when you're seeing it live, you're seeing the 3 dimensions of it. And as soon as you put it onto a 2-dimensional piece of paper, things lay down and they just look distorted. So what auto did, I'm pretty happy with. The problem though, even though it was taken at 10 millimeters, which is super wide, is you always have to leave extra space if you think you're going to correct your angles, because once it did that, you start losing, some of the detail in that lower left corner, which is kind of a shame.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're getting a little wrapped up in the transformation of the lines, but I do think that that's important. And me as a real estate photographer, I'm dealing with that all the time.
Yeah.
But I think the processing that Jason did here looks pretty good.
It does. I'm going to brighten it just a tiny bit, and I'm going to bring the whites up just a little bit and the highlights up just a bit, which should make the stars pop just a bit more, and also starts to make that Milky Way show up a little bit more. And then maybe a little texture and a little clarity, and sometimes dehaze can.
I'm curious where the light is coming from on the structure itself.
Yeah, there's a town right here. There's like a gas station, if I remember correctly, like a block away from this entrance. So it might be just the town's lights. And that's the other thing I was going to do. I was going to come down into the color panel. It's going to come down into this yellow and see if we decrease that saturation just to kind of feel like a little bit more of a natural color on it. Maybe make it seem a little more moonlight-ish. And the luminance we could then also darken, or we could brighten, which sometimes will wash out the color as well. So, but that looks pretty good. I wonder if
what if you darken the shadows just a little bit more?
Back up.
I suppose the point I'm getting at is this structure is really fighting for your attention with the stars, which is, there's 2 awesome elements in this photograph, but I find myself just constantly looking at the archway and not spending much time exploring what's up in the sky.
I've just got the brush tool, and I'm just going to brush on to remove a little bit more of that blue, and also to take that down a little bit, take the exposure down just a bit. So it's a local area adjustment. Hit the O key. I will say this real quick. I've noticed in the last couple of days, I'm not sure which version of Lightroom made this change, but my brush is so much faster than it used to be. There used to be serious lag when brushing, and I don't see that anymore. All right, so somewhere in here, I'll brush just a little bit more.
I think taking the highlights down, darkening the shadows just a little bit, Definitely decreasing the saturation of the oranges and the yellows.
Yeah. And then I have, let's see, I have a Gap Milky Way. I don't want that Milky Way. I have a Milky Way brush, and I'm going to now brush it on the milky parts of the Milky Way real quick, just to make those stand out a little bit more. Very subtle. I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to give people that fake impression of what the Milky Way looks like, but I want it to pop a little bit more. Nice.
Cool.
Those are some suggestions for you, Jason. Thanks for submitting.
Yeah.
All right, next up, we've got Chris Bartell's Mount Rainier.
I think she was on this trip with both of us, right? A year and a half ago.
I think she was on my summer trip. She was on my summer trip.
Yeah. Okay. This spot. This is just, oh gosh,
it's gorgeous. And I want people to know no flowers were harmed in the making of the shot. My clients did not tromp on any flowers. I say that seriously.
We'll go back and open that whole can of worms.
Yeah. This is gorgeous. This is really nice, Chris.
I don't really have much to say about this one, except that she's just given us a really beautiful photograph to look at here.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add. I'm seeing a little banding in the sky, but I think that's just a product of Lightroom being slow to load. Yeah, there it is.
The mist that's down there on the lake.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. Well, I mean, one of the things that I do want to say is to draw people's attention to the intentionality and the composition that Chris has done here, because I think she did a spectacular job. There's no odd intersecting lines. You got the reflection, and she's very intentional about making sure that for her foreground isn't cutting off the reflection of the mountain right there, the way it's positioned in the water. I mean, yeah, she could have gone, 2 steps a little further right, and maybe there'd be a little more separation from those 2 little trees that are touching the reflection. But I just think that you look at this picture and you feel like an observer or a participant standing right there with the person taking the photograph. But you can, as a professional photographer looking at it, you can see the intentionality that she had about getting it composed right. And it just makes a big difference.
Yeah. I took a brush and I warmed up the mountain just the tiniest bit. I don't necessarily think I think that's totally personal opinion. I'm wondering now, though, after I'm looking a little bit more, crop tool A to get out of the aspect ratio. If we came in, those white flowers are different down there in the corner.
Yeah.
And a little stemmy. What if you come in just a little bit tighter, just a bit?
Yeah, I like that actually. And I like that ratio right there. It reminds me of, more of a medium format, 4:5, that kind of 8:10 ratio, I think looks really nice here. Because the photograph automatically plays horizontal with the scene, but boxing it in like this, it just looks.
Yeah, so you can play with that in there. Very nice. Very nice, Chris.
That's cool.
All right. Kevin, on another trip with us, beautiful sunrise we had at Cathedral Ledge in New Hampshire.
Yep. I was probably standing right next to Kevin when he took this shot.
I think, yeah. This was the morning after you rolled your filter all the way off the cliff.
That's right.
I don't think we ever told that story on this. Yeah. That was.
Unfortunately, I think it's a goner, though, because it got a little bent and it just doesn't screw onto my lens well anymore.
Yeah. I mean, Steve literally accidentally dropped his filter. We were on top of this large rock, and it stretched out in front of us for quite some distance. It bounced and then proceeded to just roll in the most beautiful and efficient downhill fashion that you wouldn't think some random object could roll.
And I almost ran myself straight off of the cliff because I'm chasing after it, doing this like hunched over, hey, get back here, and it's just picking up speed. And all of a sudden, all the participants are like, stop running. You're going to run off the cliff. And it went flying off of this rock. Well, so I go down there to find it. We hike down, and we're looking around through the thickest, just piles of leaves. It's nowhere to be found. And that's no surprise whatsoever. And for whatever reason, I was so determined. And a little TMI for you folks in the audience, but I had to pee really bad down there. So I'm like, well, I'm by myself. Nobody's around here. we got a long drive back to the hotel. Well, not that long, but I couldn't wait. And I thought, everybody's gone. I'm just going to do my business and move on. So I stepped over to a tree and looked down to my left, and there it was, just sitting on the ground. Found my filter. I was all excited because it's like $125 filter. It's awesome. But I think it's not fitting on my camera too well anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, this shot from Kevin, the only thing that I'm going to say right up front about this is I want to see more of the rock that he's standing on in the foreground, or I want it eliminated. It's just that thing I've talked about before, where you're telling a story with a photograph and there's a subplot that's going on in the story. It's not really part of the overall story. And sometimes those subplots can work, but if you're just showing so little of it and it ends abruptly, it just doesn't leave your mind to fill in the blanks. So I would just remove it altogether, or better yet, I'd like to see more of it, because that extra layer is going to give the person a feeling of, participating in the scene with you, as opposed to just, standing here if you see it like this for your first time, you don't have a lot of context on exactly where you're standing to get this view. But with that rock down there, if you were to show more of it, it would be very obvious that, okay, you're standing on this rock ledge and looking out at this view. So that's what I mean. It either needs to be eliminated or show more of it. And I don't know if he's able to show more of it with the original shot.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I went ahead and cropped it out in this case and just really kind of focused on these beautiful colors that we have here. And then I just made some basic edits, a little bit brighter. A lot of these are personal opinion, but I think a little bit brighter looks nice. And brought the highlights down a little bit. Here's our before. Here's our after. I could also be convinced pretty easily to maybe throw a graduated filter over the sky that we just tint up towards the red a little bit, and maybe bring exposure down just a tiny bit more, again, to kind of really show that. And then, Steve, sometimes you like to go down on clarity with clouds, but sometimes you could also go up to really emphasize. Don't overdo it, though. We talk about salt on food there to emphasize those textures. I think either way could be nice. It depends on what you like.
Yeah, just be really, really careful if you're going to use texture and clarity on something that is soft to the eye, like clouds. I know they can be super dramatic and stuff, but when you start adding texture and clarity to clouds, they can look bad and fake really fast.
Yeah.
So that's why I usually soften them, because sometimes even realistic clouds that you've captured and you haven't done any alterations to texture or clarity, they compete with the details of, whether it's rocks or trees or mountains or something like that. So I like to soften it to create a contrast, and it really just kind of makes things pop a little bit more.
Yep. Very nice. Nice, Kevin. Adam has a fun birthday shot here. Nice.
Look like fun. Well,
yeah.
It looks like the start of fun. They're not. They're just about to go have some fun for the night.
Yeah. I think it's nice. Let's see. A little bit of exposure, a little brighter. Again, I often find myself, just because, her over here on the left, her hand and arm, the way that was I was getting it a little lost and just a bit darker. So again, I've come up almost a full stop. Not really blowing any highlights, I think. I hit the J key to see that just a little bit up there on the birthday sign. So you could bring the highlights back down if you wanted that to show up nicely. But again, I really like most of my pictures to be nice and bright. And then let's see if we shift click blacks. No, and whites. Whites come down a little bit. Blacks just sat there at 0. So they're pretty happy.
Yeah, in a snapshot like this, and I'll call it a snapshot because it's just capturing a cool little moment in time. It's not one of those that you're going to go out and win photo competitions with or anything, but these are real life photos. You want to expose for the faces. What Toby's done by increasing the exposure a bit, so you get everything right in the faces. And then you may need to make some adjustments with a brush or a filter or something like that to some of the other areas. So you may increase the exposure to get it right on the faces and the bodies of the subjects. But that could blow out what you see in the background there with the happy birthday and the white wall and things like that. So get the people right, and then go back and make some alterations to the non-human portions of the photograph to draw it all in. Because what you can do is, if you do it all globally and you bring the highlights down, then all of a sudden the faces can start looking fake. So you have to be very, very careful of that.
Yeah, but nice. And white balance looks great. Really, really nice. Only other thing I noticed is you did shoot it at f9. Super safe to make sure. I know they are in a little bit of a semicircle, so our two women closer to us certainly are maybe even 2 feet closer. But at 24 millimeters, you probably could have gone a little bit wider and been able to shoot at a slightly less ISO. But, I hesitate to even say that because this is so nicely exposed. Even with me bringing it up a little bit, there's really no noise or issue from shooting at ISO 800. So
I really like it as when you kind of cropped in or zoomed in.
Oh, yeah.
Just seeing that 30 with, kind of right at about mid level. And
yeah.
Nice shot too.
That's a cool shot too, as well. Which reminds me, I say this often on tours, and I love it. When some people have been on multiple tours, I ask the question and multiple people echo is, when's the best time to take a horizontal shot? Right after a vertical shot, and vice versa. So, that's Adam, you were only allowed to send us one, but I do hope, like, as Steve said, I think that other kind of aspect ratio looks really well there too. Nice.
What's the shutter speed on that one?
160th of a second.
Okay. All
right. Yeah. No issues. And then Jeremy has, why isn't it showing me the very top of it? I have it as fit. Let's go the other direction. 212. No, did I do that wrong? 21. No. Hold on. I can do math. 18. Yeah, why do we have these white borders around the edge? Over here in the navigator, I see the white at the top and the bottom. But okay, let's ignore that for just a moment, that we don't have a complete matte, I'll say. And
I guess my question is the white supposed to be going all the way around like the gold?
Yeah, I don't know. Jeremy says he uploaded the wrong one. That's his fault. So let's do this real quick. Let's just start by getting rid of that white. We'll pretend we don't want any white at all. And Steve, you are our expert on virtual mattes. Tell me what you think here.
Well, first of all, I like the color that he's chosen. It's super pleasing. It's a beautiful color along with the black and stuff. I think the stroke line around it is a bit too thick.
Yeah.
I would, if this was my photograph, Jeremy, I would have done a very thin black line around the frame, and then I would have done that orange line, but like a quarter of the thickness that you've chosen, and then I would finish it off with another black matte around there, so that you get a nice, clean, very, very thin little gold line. Because the problem I'm having with the way it's presented here is it boxes it in so much. All I'm looking at is the orange. And like I said, it's a really beautiful, pleasing color. I love that shade of orange, especially up against the black. I think it looks totally cool. But that's kind of part of the problem, is I want to be looking at the photograph more than the matte. The matte should always complement the story of the photograph. You never want the photograph to be defined by the matte. That makes sense.
Yeah. I fixed it for you, Jeremy. I agree 100%. So let's set aside the matte discussion now and move on, because I do think this is a gorgeous image. Really, really nice. I think a lot of times photographers go out for those sunset shoots, and then after the sun sets, they pack it in and go home. And I'm assuming here, Jeremy, I could be wrong, but it seems like we have just this really nice after sunset light glow that's just lighting up this mountain, and then of course plus the town down below. I think this is Juneau, Alaska, or at least part of it. And those reflections and the way they get kind of longer and longer over towards this corner, I love these different colors. Really, really nice.
It's a great picture, and I'm a big fan of Jeremy's work. I've seen quite a few of his photographs over the last couple of years, and he lives up, I think he lives in Juneau, but I know he lives up there in Alaska, and man, I just think every time I see one of those pictures, like right out your backyard somewhere, you've got these kind of places to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that mountain is just amazing. I'm not sure what else I would do. You know, we're looking at a JPEG here as we have been for others. I might make sure that I could see just a little bit more detail over here in the left corner of those pine trees down on the lower slopes. But otherwise, I think you've really kind of nailed this shot.
Yeah,
I'm
trouble seeing it just with my monitor and the fact that it's a picture of a picture of a picture. But you know, if you're going to blow this up big, especially on a medium like metal or something like that, where all the details are going to be captured, you just want to make sure that there's texture in those darker spots right there. You don't have to see much, but you just don't want to see, you know, flat black.
Yeah. Yeah. Very nice. Very nice, Jeremy. All right, everybody who sent pictures in, thank you so much. I know it's not always easy to put your work out in front of the World Wide Web. I just made myself sound old. Well, I guess I am, as my 13-year-old would tell me. You are old, Dad.
You're old when somebody says, okay, do you have a website? What is it? Okay, it's World Wide Web. www.
Yeah, yeah. So if you are watching the show and you're not a Pen member and you'd like to get feedback on your images, this is just one of the many ways that you can get feedback, both from professional photographers like Steve and myself to the image competition level where you have David and Allie, Steve, myself, and sometimes guests on there reviewing your images and each week picking a winner that receives a fantastic prize from Bay Photo. And I'm not talking like a 4x6. We're talking big, beautiful prints from them.
Yeah, we're scheduled to record that on Friday. So keep an eye out for that. It's by the 25th of each month, by midnight on the 25th of each month. Get your one photo submitted for that. If you don't know what the heck we're talking about and you are a Pen member, there's links to be able to find out all the details around entering the competition. And please, folks, don't get intimidated. It's not like that. It's really a place of education. And we like to reward some of those folks that want to get better in a competition type of setting. And it's just turned out to be one of my favorite things to do. So we're going to record December's competition this Friday. So look for that. Hopefully by the end of the day. Depends on how quickly David can turn around the editing. But that is just one of the great benefits of that.
Yep. Yeah. All right, let's move into some news because we got news to talk about. First, actually, I tell you what. Let's for a second, Steve. Let's start with your news. We've been teasing, we've been talking, we've been teasing you. Have you freaking bought a new camera?
It's so weird because I've shot Canon forever, and usually I'll buy, you know, kind of the newer model when it comes out, which isn't that often, the 5D Mark II to the 3 to the every 5 years you get a camera. And the decision is quite simple. It's, okay, the new camera's out, I want it, and I'm going to save my pennies and get it when it's released or shortly after. And then I bought the Hasselblad as a medium format. That I did kind of agonize over for quite a while and ran some ROI numbers and stuff to justify spending money on that thing. But this camera, I really didn't spend much money on, and I probably did more research and agonized over the purchase of this camera than any other camera I've bought in recent time. And I don't know why I agonized so much, because I think I truly had my mind made up that I wanted a Fuji. And then I was bugging Brian Scanlon. I've talked about that on the show before. He's our kind of Fuji expert with a million questions.
As he says, it's his fault.
It is his fault. Yeah, my wife does blame him too. Thankfully, Brian loves to nerd out on Fuji and got back to me immediately on all my questions with very helpful information. And this was his recommendation. And anyway, so I've got it's a Fuji, let's see if you can see that, XE3. And I've just got a 23 millimeter prime, which is the equivalent of about 35 millimeters. It's an f2, and this lens, I mean, look at these lenses are just tiny. Look at the size of that thing.
Yeah, it's nice. That's nice.
Awesome. I mean, this camera, interchangeable lens, a lot of manual controls, manual aperture on the lens, and shutter speed up here on the dial. Went with a very old school.
Okay, Google, set heat to 60. Sorry about that.
Just went with an old school Ona strap. I think this is called the Ona Savella, which was way overpriced, but really cool. I've Ona straps before on my film. I really like them. So yeah, I'm excited. This is going to my daughter's wedding in Maui. I leave on Sunday for Maui for a couple of weeks, and this is the only camera that I'm bringing, and I'm pretty excited about that.
That's, oh boy, I'm having all kinds of issues here. Hang on just a second.
Jeez.
I know, you think you're ready for a show, you think you've done everything, and then you just kind of start to fall apart as my camera lost connection. But I think it's going to come back any second now. Oh, I like that blue. You see, I was a Smurf for a second. All right. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm stoked on this camera. It's super lightweight. It's small. It's Fuji. I mean, their color processing is just awesome. And the biggest debate, once I made up my mind, and I know somebody in the chat room can relate. David Carr, you might be able to relate. If nobody can, just lie and say you can, so that I don't feel like so OCD and weird. But it was, do I get silver or black? Obviously, I went with the black.
I mean, I think the black was a good choice. And when you have that choice with the Fuji cameras, they both look really, really nice. I'll give that to you, Steve. And usually I give you crap because you are totally OCD. And man, sometimes I worry for you, but
you worry for me. God, why?
This would be great where if you had one of those nice pictures of when we room together on trips, what my side of the room looks like, your side of the room. What's the opposite of OCD?
Yeah, we are. We're really the odd couple when we go on tour together. I mean, it's like Felix and Oscar for sure.
Yeah. But no, that looks like a great camera. I've heard fantastic things about it. And I totally hear you on that. It's excited kind of to travel so late. Best wishes for your daughter. That's really exciting. I didn't think it was coming up so soon, but you leave Sunday?
Leave Sunday. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's it's a big deal. Obviously my youngest daughter's getting married, so that's a huge deal, but a lot of the family is going to make the trek out there. And that's awesome. The thought of getting to spend time, now it's my wife's family, I'm married into this, my stepdaughter, but with all of our family at one place like Maui.
Yeah.
They're not all staying for the 2 weeks. We extended our stay, but because most of them are in California, so they can pop out there for a long weekend. And,
you're going to need a vacation after the family, right?
Yeah, and my wife, I mean, I've done a lot of travel over the last few years, and she's done virtually none, and she hasn't taken a proper vacation in a really, really long time, and so she's super excited about this. And it's going to be awesome. And so that kind of all played into the camera situation, is just that I want to totally disconnect, and I just want a camera that I can capture some really good photographs, a street shooter. And if I have to work at it because of the prime lens, so okay, I have to move my feet a little bit, but it's not a photography trip. I just want to get some good snapshots. And so I'm excited to use it.
Yeah, nice. All right, let's get into some other gear. But I do want to ask chat first, if you've been watching these mishmashes for a while, you know that I've been talking about my big trip coming up not too far away, Thailand vacation, and not taking a camera at all. I want to know from you, chat, do you think I'll be able to stick to that? That's all I'm going to say right now. Okay, so Canon has announced the 1DX Mark III. I mean, honestly, don't have a ton to say about this camera. It's out of my league. I never reviewed the 1DX 1 or 2. I have shot with both of those, but not enough to review them. I'm not a professional sports or professional wildlife photographer. The one thing that I do want to talk about, though, which I think is cool, is one, Canon has really packed this full of some high-end video features, which in the past, they've kind of shied away from that, even in their higher-end cameras because of their cinema line. But this thing has some impressive video specs. It is impressive on the photo side as well. And I think one of the coolest features back button focus, yeah, expected. But this is not only a little button to push, it is also touch sensitive. So you can wipe your thumb around on that dial to move your focus point incredibly quickly and easily, and then push the focus as well. So that's cool. Instead of moving your thumb down to the joystick to move and back up. So I'm impressed with that. It's $6,500. I think you got to be making a living at either serious video or serious photography to really justify this. But it's going to be a beast of a camera, and it's going to take a huge beating and still work. Its battery life is going to be out of this world. And one thing I was going to say about it. Oh, it shoots in the new HEIF format.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
It's super impressive. I was watching the DP review on it, and they were saying with that back button focus, and then the fact that it's a swipe button, you need to be careful about how many focus points you're actually putting on there, because if you do too few, it's jumping around. It's very touch sensitive. Around a lot. If you do, too many, it just takes you a while of doing that. So there's a sweet spot, and I can't remember how many focus points there were, but like you said, it's for serious shooters, and $6,500 is a lot of money any way you slice it. But if you say, okay, I'm going to be a professional, sports shooter, or I want it for wildlife or whatever, $6,500, people pay that. But that's just a starting point. One of the things with this camera is it's got those CFast cards in there. And those things are very expensive. And if you're going to do video on that thing, man, so it'll shoot 4K uncropped, which is awesome. But 4K uncropped on those CFast cards, what did they say? It's like 5 minutes of video for 128 card, maybe. I don't know if that was 64.
People using this as a main video camera are going to hook it up to an Atomos system and full SSD. So that's another grand, easy.
And if you start getting into that kind of money, like, why wouldn't you be just using, what's their cinema line? I forget what it's called.
The C100, C200, C300.
I mean, so I appreciate what they're doing with this thing on the video end. I'm not a video guy at all, so I have no use for it. But people that do, I appreciate it. But you're still it's stuck in this giant DSLR body. I think as a photograph shooter, man, it's awesome, and the battery life is insane, even compared to the 1DX Mark II. You can get a lot more pictures on there. I think it's over 1,000 pictures.
Oh yeah, easy. It's comparable to the D4 system that Frank has gone out and shot with for long weekend trips. And it's just, the battery is that whole bottom grip. It's just massive, and it lasts and lasts. One other neat thing, what did I want to say that was interesting? Oh, the deeper learning AI system to kind of help sports photographers specifically with head tracking. They fed it tens of thousands of sports related images to help it learn and track better for that as well. So I really expect this to be a beast and an impressive camera. And I wonder if it'll be the last, because we've got a related story of, I'll skip down a bit, no more Canon EF lenses. Now, this is one of those stories where they're saying our focus is on RF, no new EF lenses unless market demands it. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to update current EF lenses. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they won't ever make another one. But if we want to be dramatic, this is certainly pretty big news for a Canon executive to say, we're not making any of those new lenses anytime soon.
Yeah, I think I watched Matt Granger did a nice video just on his thoughts about the 1DX Mark III, and it's relatively short. But he talks about these articles, and I think journalists or reporters are just kind of, it's a little bit of clickbait by saying that no more EF lenses. That may be the case, but I read the quote, and it may be in there somewhere, where he basically said, like, we will continue to fully support EF lenses, and if there's demand for any particular type, we're on it. But they're taking all their resources and putting it towards the RF lenses now, because that's what they need to build up that bank of business. So it's easy to twist that around and just say Canon is done making EF lenses, and they might be, but it doesn't mean that they're not fully supporting that. I think sometimes it drives me nuts though, because people see those headlines and they read it, and then all of a sudden they're like, crap, all this stuff I just spent thousands of dollars on is becoming obsolete, and I shouldn't have done that, or I need to go buy new stuff.
Yeah.
That's not the case.
Yeah. Totally. And, John says, sounds like Canon trying to whip up a little press. I mean, I'd say yes and no. I mean, I think in some ways it's not good press, because it's saying, hey, we're done with that systems that you all have. And then as you point out, then maybe, yeah, that is what they want. Because then everybody's got to be like, oh, I guess I better go buy that new mirrorless camera. But, these are many of these Canon lenses that are over a decade old are still fantastic and work fine, and doesn't mean your old system is obsolete. So, yeah we'll see. Okay. Moving on to Nikon. Nikon has announced a new DSLR, the D780. This is replacing the D750, which came out in when? 2014, 2015.
Yeah, what an outstanding camera that's been.
For so long was my pick for best value full frame camera, period. It just...
I heard that they're going to continue selling the D750 just at a lower price alongside the D780.
Yeah.
At least for now.
Yeah, so the as many people are describing this, it basically is a Z6 system in a DSLR. So, and really all that means is kind of on the live view and the video side of things, you have very similar to the Z6. Otherwise, it's very similar to the the 750. We got a backside illuminated sensor now, so we should see slightly better improvements in low light performance, nothing dramatically different. Shutter now top speed of 1/8,000th of a second versus 1/4,000th. Updated metering sensor and algorithms from the D5, so autofocus should be noticeably improved. That was something that the D750 was fast enough for almost everybody, but it certainly wasn't a powerhouse in the autofocus department. I remember that from my review ages ago. So that should be a nice upgrade. We got dual UHS 2 SD card slots, and as I said, much improved video features, essentially matching the Z6.
They did away with the built-in flash, which, for me, and I think a lot of people that are taking this seriously, that's no big deal. Just external. What I do like though are the new features with the live view shooting that Nikon has done, that they've incorporated into this camera. That to me is a big step up from the D750. Although I don't know that I would totally recommend this camera if you're just being very budget conscious and you want to get into a really good full frame camera. You could still recommend the D750, but the live view, Nikon finally got the live view shooting right when they introduced their mirrorless line, and then I think the 850. They did a really good job with the live view, if I remember correctly.
It's much better. Yep, it is much better. But still, the live view experience in Nikon generally hasn't been great until they hit the mirrorless. I think it's some of the best in the mirrorless bodies, the Z6 and Z7 and the Z50. And now taking that to the DSLR side of things is smart. Yeah, and at on a full frame camera at this price point, included pop-up flash. I don't miss that either. So not a big deal there. Get a nice external flash. It's going to make such a big difference. They're really cheap ones. They're going to be much, much better.
John Mayfield just put a comment up and said it's kind of a hybrid option. If you just want good photographs, D750 is a great way to go. Oh, awesome. Got that up there.
Yeah. That's a good, I think so. And, it brings up, Nikon hasn't said that they're not producing more Nikon lenses. In fact, at CES, they've released a new lens for their Nikon mount, their current DSLRs, and also one for their mirrorless. But they also have to be getting close to this transition of kind of moving forward as well. And then David Carr brings up a great point. David, I don't think I called you out in chat. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to have you back on the show soon, especially to talk about your podcast. David, put in chat the link to your podcast. Is there an easy place to get that? David's doing a great podcast all about photography as well. So if you want more content about photography, you should go check that out. It is $600 more than the Z6. So that is true.
Almost seals it right there. Like, how many of these things are they really going to sell? You're still making the predecessor, which is a really good camera. You've got your mirrorless line, which is kind of where everybody is migrating over to now anyway. And so who's gonna buy this? I mean, somebody who's just bent on sticking with a DSLR and wants to do more video work, I guess. But that seems like a very, very narrow band of customers to be going after. I don't know. I don't want to down talk the camera because it sounds awesome, but
I know, and we're being nice. I mean, again, I think it does sound like a good camera, but at this price point, David brings up a really good, interesting question. And also, how long will the D780 be at this price point? Because the Z6 was released at almost the same price point, and yeah, it came in at just over $2,000, or I guess let's say $2,000.
Yeah.
And they dropped that price pretty quickly and pretty significantly, pissing off some of their early customers and early adopters. You always run that risk when you buy right away, but that drop was a little bit more dramatic than you usually see in most cameras, and it was because Nikon was like, "Oh crap, nobody's buying our new camera." So it'll be interesting to see how this goes over the next couple of months.
Can I say one little thing about LCD technology? I don't quite understand this. Now that we're kind of shooting more mirrorless stuff, or we're seeing it come to market, we have these awesome kind of liquid ink sort of displays that a lot of the cameras are using. LCD screens that are on top of the camera or in different places. They use no energy. They look really super clear. They can be illuminated really nice and everything. Why is it we have two DSLRs that were just introduced to the market, both of which are very high-end cameras, one being the flagship for Canon, and you look at the screens that they're putting on these things, and they look like something right out of 2006.
Yeah,
they couldn't work on getting that improved.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
silly, but
yeah. Or let's bash Sony for a second, because they make gorgeous smartphones, not necessarily the best out there, but really nice smartphones. And the Sony cameras have horrible touchscreen operations. The screen is just okay. And DP Review had a kind of the big cameras of the decade review. So I guess DP Review also considers it a start of a new decade. Take that, nerds. And one of the ones that was not on that list, at least I just glanced, was the Samsung NX1 series, which that camera came out in 2014 or 2015. It was a crop sensor camera. It was fantastic with gorgeous screens, gorgeous interface, firmware updates over Wi-Fi. I mean, it was so ahead of its time. We're still not back to that until 2020. Screw your hoverboards. Screw your self-lacing shoes. I want firmware updates over Wi-Fi.
It's so true. I love the soapbox you're on right now. I'm agreeing 100%.
So, all right. Yeah. David Carr podcast. I think David's not actually allowed to I don't think you peons, if you're not actually participating in the show, you're just watching, you don't get put links in there. So Roy has nicely, there it is. I'll put it in the link right down below. So if you're watching this after the fact, check out David Carr
Actually,
podcast.
everybody just take about 10 minutes, grab a pen and a piece of paper.
6D capital Y
/
I mean, the internet's not case sensitive, right? So that doesn't really matter. But yeah, so David Carr's good podcast will be linked right down below. Okay, my rant took up too much time. One, we've got a new Nikon lens for the Z mount, the 70-200 with VR. That's the vibration reduction. $2,600.
No surprise there, though. I mean,
yeah.
Nikon out of the gates with their longer lenses is just. What would their latest 70-200 with the for their DSLRs? I think it was like $3,000 or $3,200 when it first hit the market.
20 I think 27 or 28. Yeah.
Still,
so
great, awesome, but it won't last at that price, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'll just say that this is a first Z mount with VR. You say, well, how can that be? Because the Nikon put IBIS in their cameras, so not like Canon. And the details state that this VR is going to work with the in-body stabilization together to give you some really good stabilization. So that's cool.
Ask if they were. I'm sure they were designed to work together, which is awesome.
Yeah, that should be nice.
Lens. That's great.
Yeah. All right, and then Steve, I don't know if you saw this. This is a new announcement. Oops, I went too far. Okay, new announcement from CES from the Insta X3. I always say it wrong. Where'd it go? Oh, here. The Insta 360R. This is, so these guys are the guys that make that kind of tall, almost cylindrical looking 360 camera that I took on my summer road trip and honestly took like 5 pictures with. Just because I don't know, I don't feel like 360. Maybe I'm not ready for 360. But then this was announced and I was like, holy crap, I want that. This is basically a GoPro that can also do 360 and then has other modules that you can plug and play with like a 1-inch sensor that's not quite as wide, but good for low light. And it comes in at a pretty reasonable price. It's all waterproof. You can shoot in 360 and through this, through the software, you can flip it around whenever you want to. The selfie stick is invisible. Like there's a selfie stick coming off that guy's jetpack right there. And of course, these kind of videos make this stuff look super epic. But I have to say, this looks impressive. And if I was GoPro, I would be a little worried. I don't know. Any thoughts, Steve?
I don't like these type. I love, like I subscribe to GoPro and I love a lot of the videos that they put on YouTube and stuff. But like that, you see that horse running guy on it. I mean, it's so distorted. I'm just not a fan of this kind of stuff. I love the point of view. That just, oh gosh, I just don't like that stuff. I mean, maybe I'm alone here. That's just, it's so odd and distorted looking and stuff. I'd rather just see, what does it look like from the dude's helmet or, some cool angle there. But give me a good picture that isn't just getting warped every direction they look.
Yeah.
And that's not a big fan of the 360 cameras.
Yeah, it definitely is an issue with them. But, for on the creator side of thing, kind of having that control, one camera, basically it's like 2 GoPros, one at your face, one in the direction, and you could switch back and forth. So
I think the magic comes in the editing and what you do with it, because that's and maybe that's the problem I have, is that you start putting this kind of stuff in Joe Blow's hands all over the place and they just, spit it out on the web and it just looks lame to me. But when you see it, that's why I like GoPro's channel, subscribing to their channel, because you see professionally edited footage that people have caught from certain angles and stuff. And it looks pretty rad most of the time. So I think maybe I'm just you know what? I'm a 360-degree camera snob.
I know, but your point is so right. These cameras, they can do all of this stuff, but if you're just plopping the footage online, it doesn't matter. You got to do something with it. Yeah. No, totally right. But here it is at about the same price as the GoPro Hero Black, right? What's the GoPro Hero Black right now? 8 GoPro Hero 8 Black is for $30 less, or for $30 more, you get a camera that can also do 360 and you can plug in other modules later. So I think this looks interesting. I've heard early results, early quality is okay. So they might need to work on that some more. We'll see. And then this CES Lenovo frame, 21 inches. I'm a big fan of my Nix Play upstairs. It's a tiny little frame that has family photos and rotates through. I would love something like this. Look at it.
I've been seeing these. There's a company called Mural, but it's spelled odd.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about this kind of thing. I think this is totally cool. Basically taking a digital frame from, years ago and blowing it up to wall size, I just think is really, really neat. I want to see a bunch of this stuff come out. I want to see the competition drive the prices way down so that we can all put these awesome frames around our house and just rotate pictures,
Yeah.
different photos in there. I think it's cool.
Yeah. I think it is cool too. I'm really disappointed. For one, do we feel like this is miniaturized? Because if this is a 21-inch frame, it looks so much bigger than 21 inches here above this.
That is, you got to figure that buffet right there is between 48 and 60 inches.
Yeah.
So 21 inches would be at least half its size, probably smaller.
Yeah, it feels weird. Feels weird. But I'm just really disappointed. That's all right. So a pretty nice price there. That's a reasonable price to me. But it's just 1980. Or I mean, it's just HD. It's just not more than that. I want 4K. Yeah. I want these pictures. I want this to feel like it's going to last. So I'm a little disappointed in that right now. But I agree with you, Steve. It is the future. We're working towards that. I think we'll all eventually have 8K frames in our house.
Yeah, I love that. I'm so excited about that day. We're not. It's weird. I have a bunch of televisions in my house. A bunch of us have been answering that thing on Penn, but we don't watch a lot of TV. It's kind of like our guest room. We put one in there because guests will probably want to watch TV. The kids have one to watch some videos, but what I would love to have in this house is just a whole bunch of 24 by 36 inch frames on walls and be able to just change the pictures every so often. Yeah. Do a holiday theme around the house at Christmas time, or do Cinco de Mayo thing with a bunch of pictures of tacos and burritos all over the house.
Only burritos. Only burritos.
Only tacos.
All right. Yeah. And Andrew and Roy are both talking in chat. Samsung has an art TV that's out, that will display your artwork or, other official artwork. My understanding of that TV, though, is yes, it hasn't done very well, is that it's not that easy to get your own pictures on. I mean, one of the things that I love about the Nix Play is its connectedness to these other systems. I add photos to a Google album of my own, and then they just show up on the frame. So that's one of the things that they got to get better about.
Yeah, it's got to have an automated assistant built into it or something. We're starting to get Alexa devices all over this house now. It's something that I could just say, hey, Alexa, put this on the family room wall, and it's just there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Tim thanks you. Tim thanks you for your...
Yeah. Okay. The Christmas over the last couple of years have basically been Alexa filled.
All right, let's talk about this egg. This sounds exciting because as somebody who's flown my drone over water more than a couple of times, and if you go watch my Mavic Mini review, you see that then more than a couple of times I've crashed very close to water, which gives me heart attacks. Our good friend Frank in Alaska has crashed his into water as well. And so this caught my eye. It's a waterproof drone, right? Why isn't this? Here we go. Okay, it is scrolling. It is waterproof accessory, wizard only, when you start reading a little bit more. And it's got this AI camera mode. And okay, we get to the actual video. Okay, we have a cute girl wearing a dude shirt. So that's always catches your eye. Yeah, now we know who this drone is marketed towards. It's supposed to have all of these smarts, and you watch their promo video, and 90% of it, now, all right, maybe like 80% is shooting music videos and walking around with it as a camcorder. And then, it's supposed to have something like this. And then they show a little bit of it flying. Here it is. And it has floats built in if you want to buy them. And you can fly it in the rain with this dome cover. I'm sure it doesn't get any drops on the thing. So, I mean, the idea sounds really cool, but I'm very skeptical. It is not actually. That's it would seem like that, but you can just go ahead and order it. For the Power Egg itself, $8.99. If you want the waterproof one, $12.49. It does have this, it has a small, same kind of sensor size that's in here. So it's not the 1 inch that you have in the current Mavic Pro 2. It does shoot 4K at 60 frames per second. But
is the company Power Egg, or is there a larger company behind this thing?
This is the Power Vision is the company. And I don't know what else they've put out. What else? Oh, let's see. What's a Power Dolphin? Ooh. That's exciting. What is this? It's a power dolphin. Is it an underwater drone? I want that.
Boy.
What else do we have? What's the power seeker? That's lower down. Oh, it's only $99. What the heck is this thing? Power Seeker is an easy-to-use fish finding solution for fishermen on the move. It accurately determines fish locations. All right, what do we got under aerial? So yeah, see where they were the Power Egg original. Yeah, they were this original thing. And I'll tell you what, this was on sale over the holidays a couple of times at B&H. The reviews are not pretty. I'll just say that. So that makes me a little concerned for this other drone product. And again, when they talk about it being a drone, but then I'll say 70% now, 70% of the intro video is it being used as a camcorder. I'm a little skeptical.
Yeah, go ahead and why don't you contact these folks and have them send you the fish thing. Let's go out fishing.
Yeah. I'm a big fisherman these days. Yeah.
If it works for the lay person out there.
All right.
I'll bring my sticks of dynamite. You bring your power egg.
My sticks of dynamite. Okay. It is a new year. We both wanted to share a tip, kind of a simple tip to think about as you are photographing or thinking about how to photograph this year. Steve, you want to go first?
Yeah, so Toby asked me right before the show if I had any New Year's tip, and it was a really interesting question because I've got my own little resolutions and stuff. I don't have anything very super cut and dry this year like I have in years past, but it made me think about what one thing would I want to tell the audience to think about in this new year. And for me, the first thought that came to mind is just really learning to use what you have, and in all facets. When I first bought my medium format, I could only afford to get one lens with it when I bought it, and to date I have two lenses for it. So I mean, I've got to make that work, and I use it all the time. I use it; it's my work camera. I shoot real estate with it. But I learned to move around and stitch things together and get creative with it and they're prime lenses. So, and it's not just the lenses. It could be your backpack or your camera body or whatever. I just think that we're at a time when we're such consumers, myself included, and we're always looking at what the next thing is that's coming out. And there can be this pull to just say, oh, my stuff is outdated, I need something new. And I realize the irony as I'm sitting here with a new camera on my desk. But I would just encourage you to take what you have, maybe read the owner's manual a little bit and work on one thing at a time, or spend some time with pen and deep dive into some of these tips and stuff, and then go out and shoot. Save your money and go out and shoot, whether it's a trip or a photo meetup or get in the car and drive to a national park or whatever. Just, I'm seeing so many people now that are switching. They're taking their whole bank of camera gear and they're selling it all, and they're switching everything over to mirrorless and these new lenses and stuff. And for a lot of people, that's really great, but it's not always necessary. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, I don't know, just spend some time with the stuff that you have and really learn how to use it, because these cameras can do far more than anything we ever really do with them. Yeah. That's my quick.
I think it's great, to support that. When my daughter goes shooting, she uses an older T6S, a Canon T6S. I had a couple years old, and just, a crop sensor, entry-ish level Canon body. And then I look at her pictures. I look at my pictures with a newer Sony and expensive lenses. And when she gets it right and when I get it right, there's not that much difference. There really isn't. So it is. I can make you feel like it, because part of my job, part of the way I make a living is try to sell you more stuff. But the reality is what you have is good enough, and take the time and energy to go out and make some pictures with what you have. I think is fantastic advice.
One thing that I will tack on there's a bit of an asterisk, is get a good tripod. Spend and get a good tripod. I was just thinking about that as I was talking, like, you know, I don't, sometimes it drives me nuts when people use their gear as the limitations. But I will say that the quickest piece of gear that does give you limitations, honest to goodness limitations, is your tripod. And I'm not saying if you went out and bought a Me Photo that you need to go spend $500 on a ball head from RRS. I'm saying if you have grandpa's old tripod that is rickety and falling apart, and you know you got to crank something in order for it to raise and lower, and it packs up this small and it weighs next to nothing, it's probably not going to keep your stuff stable. So just, you know, 150, a couple $100, get a good tripod. It'll last you years. And just so many tours to see some of these tripods where I'm just like, I hate to tell people to go out and buy gear, but please get a good tripod.
No, very, very well said. Very well deserving of that asterisk. I'm going to pop up my Instagram. I think most of you follow me, but if you don't, I'm very excited about a small but important package that's being delivered Monday. Follow me. I'll talk about it on stories on Monday or Tuesday. That has to do with tripods. So, and Steve, you're going to be jealous. You're going to be jealous. No, probably not. Probably not.
The ship sailed on the Peak Designs thing.
No, not the Peak Design.
Okay.
Nope. Just a bunch of initials, maybe some R's, maybe some S's.
Oh.
Okay. All right. My tip. When you get out there with whatever gear you're going out there with, is to be more thoughtful and more deliberate in this year. It's something that I really started to take to heart a couple of years ago. And it was that year, it was the year of like 2016, where I thought I really start looking at these pictures as I start to make them, and really thinking about what captures my eye. Because here's what happens. You're walking around someplace pretty and you're like, ooh, that's pretty. And you bring the camera up to your eye. You're focused on what caught your eye, the subject. Maybe it's the neat reflections in the water like Jeremy shot there back in Juneau, or maybe it's Mount Rainier. And you're not looking at what's going on around or the whole picture. But I want you then to take a step back in your mind and say, okay, there's my subject. How can I very deliberately frame this? How can I thoughtfully make a very strong image here? And you're going to create fewer images, but you're going to create more images with strength and impact. So that's my tip.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Thoughtful and deliberate.
Good.
Yeah.
Good thought.
Yeah. I think, let's see, do we have any Q's and A's that we need? Brian wanted to ask about the catalogs. We answered that earlier. Pam says she has some camera bodies and lenses that she's going to try to sell. How to price them? Have you sold anything recently online? Not really, camera wise.
To get started, because I've thought about it. I would get on KEH, B&H, Adorama, see if they have any of your equipment for sale that's used, see what kind of condition they rate it as, and see what their asking price is. And if you're going to sell it on, say, Facebook Marketplace or something like that, you're probably going to have to sell it for a price less than what they're asking, because you're an unknown. Somebody's not just, buying from B&H or Adorama or KEH. So that's how I would get started. I wouldn't look at eBay or Craigslist or any of that. I'd look at the reputable sites and then price yourself accordingly. So
yeah. And if you go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's what I would do.
Yeah, the great advice. My only other advice would be if you want to make a little bit less but have less hassle, just sell it to B&H or send it into B&H's used department. You're going to not make as much, but you won't have to deal with anybody trying to scam you. You won't have to deal with anybody else. So it's kind of one of those things. How much time you got? What's your time worth to you? There's value to both ways to get rid of gear.
Yeah. And that's a good point. You got to remember that they're going to buy your stuff and then they're going to turn around and sell it. And they're going to sell it at a price less than new. So, it's like trading in a car, right? Yeah. They're going to offer you a lot less, but they also take care of all the hassle for you. So kind of figure out what that's worth. So.
Yeah. All right. Hey, first show of the year, 90 minutes. I think this is a good place to stop. Steve,
you know what I forgot to talk about?
What we didn't talk about?
Your new, I don't know, is it called a board game that I sent you for Christmas?
It's called a card game.
I forgot I was going to mention that to you. I want to see one live. All I saw was on the internet.
Oh, okay. I'll go do a little video on Instagram stories just for you. I played with the kids over the holidays. We'll play again, I'm sure. It's fun. It's fast. It's silly. You can fill your burrito or taco with like a bowl of lice or like old pickles. So it's still makes me so hungry just thinking about it.
I knew. So for the audience, I should have put this at the beginning when more people were watching. But so you know, this is the perfect Christmas gift that I found for Toby. I had it sent to his house, and it's a card game designed by a 7-year-old called Tacos versus Burritos. And I mean, if there isn't a more perfect game out there to just kind of be right in the center of our friendship, this is it right here. I'm a tacos guy. He's a burritos guy. I think a burrito is a small mule, not a Mexican food item. I love burritos, but I like tacos better. And so, yeah. And it's designed by a 7-year-old. That's it's like right up our mental alley. It's great.
Yeah, perfect. A little old for me, actually. A little old.
Yeah, I was a little worried about that, but I figured one of these days I could come over there and we could put our heads together and figure out how to play it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's very well received. Thanks so much, Steve. All right. And go follow Steve because apparently he's now posting on Instagram. So if you're watching this long, go take a moment to follow Steve if you don't already. Give this show a thumbs up. Also, a reminder in 2020, if you want to put your pictures someplace more pretty than where you already put them, squarespace.com/photorectv is the best place to start because you can save 10% off. And if you're watching this show today, January 8th, before midnight tonight, you can save an extra $1 off our already ridiculously low price to join. Photorec.tv/pen is where you can find out more about that and also become, it's just really, truly one of the best photo communities anywhere online. And I truly mean that. Awesome, awesome group of people. Many of you are hanging out in the chat room. Thank you for hanging out with us today. Yeah. Okay. Everybody, have a wonderful rest of your January. I will be back next week. I think, Steve, you'll probably be with me. We haven't talked yet. No, you'll be.
I'll be in the sunshine of Maui, so I may miss you guys for a couple of weeks now.
Okay. Well, we're looking forward to seeing your pictures. David Carr, maybe you're available next week. I'll reach out.
Yeah, David Carr, that would be awesome.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.